try to be edgy, you should never try to be edgy. You either are or you are not.
She doesn't conform to anything but herself.
She doesn't care what people think. She's gonna do things her way.
It's who she is, and it's what makes her so wonderful.
She's her own person. That's one of the best things about her.
How positive she remains in the face of undying adversity.
She's really unique in this space.
She is 100% Danielle all day, every day.
She's just that chick that kind of beats to her own drum, man. Like, she doesn't give a fuck.
It was funny, a lot of people would ask me what my goal was for the CrossFit Games that year, and I would always say, just top 20, which is funny to think about because I had no comparison.
Prior to 19, we would have 40 to 50 individual athletes at the CrossFit Games.
So we had, I think, 150-ish athletes on both sides, and fuck, it was crazy. Everyone, we all competed that year.
This was the year they randomly invited Hunter McIntyre. We're standing there, he's like, so, like, how'd you make it to the games? And I'm like, oh, I qualified through the open. He's like, oh, so you're, like, really fit. And I was like, kind of. In college, I was a scholarship athlete for pole vault at Sacramento State every year. I made NCAAs, and the date of NCAAs was the same date as regionals. And that kind of happened like year after year. I always had to decline that regionals invite because I was in college for track and field and always had NCAAs to go to.
So in 2019, there was a multitude of ways to get to the games. You get there from winning a sanctional event. You could also get there if you were a country champion or doing very well in the open.
I got 16th in the open, so I qualified for the games. Because of how much a big deal everybody else was making it, I was like, you know, maybe I am like kind of fit. When I actually realized how many people were at the games that year, I really am just one small person here amongst so many athletes.
It was crazy. There were a lot of cuts. I think half the field after the first, and then maybe half the field again after the second.
I really wanted to welcome everyone to the CrossFit Games with like, welcome to the fucking CrossFit Games. I really wanted to separate the best in the world from the rest in the world.
Final heat of first cut.
At the 2019 games, I was coaching Carrie Pierce.
I do remember it was like a 400-meter run. There were some legless rope climbs and then moderate weight snatches.
I'd never done many legless rope climbs in a workout.
Relatively technique-free, but incredibly challenging, incredibly difficult, especially at high rep. The thought there was I wanted to hammer them.
Once that movement's gone and you start failing, the likelihood of you coming back from that and not failing again is like slim to none.
We programmed that workout not for 150, 200 athletes, but for 20 of the best in the world.
Tia Toomey in a class all by herself right now. 100 points to start the 2019 Reebok CrossFit Games.
That was my first ever experience of a workout at the games. So like, okay, like this didn't go great, but I didn't get cut after the first workout. From then, I'm like, dang, like I'm really here.
I remember we were sitting on the table in between athletes, and this brick shithouse of a woman walked down the hallway, and she was tan and tatted up and blonde, and I was like, Jason, who is that? And he was like, dude, I don't know. I was like, it's gotta be a Swedish chick. If she was American, we'd know who she is.
The second workout was called Second Cut because more people got cut. It was just like the lamest name.
A row into some kettlebell shoulder to overhead into a handstand walk.
I thought when event 2 came out, Carrie had a great shot to win it.
Ex-gymnast, you know, good on my hands, love handstand walking.
My shoulder stamina is really good. was like, yeah, I'll do these unbroken, easy, really cocky, knowing nothing about like game style training, game style workouts at all. Like I broke it up a lot. My shoulders were burning. The standard was really hard.
I tried to keep my eye on Brooke Wells to kind of see where she was at in the workout. I knew she would be really good, and I was next to Tia Toomey. I'm like, I know I can beat her on the handstand walks.
People talking about, oh, so-and-so is really good at this, so-and-so is really good at that. In my mind, I turned and told my wife, said, nah, Danielle's got this.
And we have a new leader, and it's Brandon. Danielle Brandon, as she comes out of nowhere.
It didn't even register to me at that moment who she was or what was going on.
Danielle Brandon is gonna win this event.
Kind of finished, and I'm like, all right, like I guess I won. So this was my first ever interview, and it went pretty bad.
It's my first year here, so it was amazing to make it past the first cut.
Anything in particular that you're looking forward to? We got a lot of mystery surrounding what's to come. What would you like to see?
What would I like to see? We already did snatches. I really like heavy snatches, and I love handstand walks.
Bring on the handstands. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But it was such a trash interview that people really liked that. And so I was like, okay, like this is good. This is good feedback.
Tri-Cities is 3 cities in rural eastern Washington.
Desert, kind of farm town, middle of nowhere. Tri-Cities because Kennewick, Richland, and Pasco, so very closely intertwined in that area.
It's kind of like a suburb to nowhere. There's like no downtown. There's like not a lot to do there.
Most of the things we did was just outdoors.
We did club gymnastics together. She was fantastic at gymnastics. Yeah, she was incredible from the beginning, for sure. We started being on the same like gymnastics team in middle school, so that's when we became a lot closer. And then in high school, I found out she lived like 5 blocks away from me, and so we spent every single day together.
One of my earliest memories of Danielle in middle school, she was doing push-up competitions with the boys, like not caring about anything, just was like, oh, I'm stronger than them, I can beat them. Like, it's similar to how she is now, like, I'll win, I got it.
We were always in the same classes and just kind of like gravitated towards each other. And she was just like a really easy person to hang out with. Her parents I became really close with. She just supported me so much too. Like when I started getting into CrossFit and into other sports, like she was just my #1 fan.
Like I loved it. Like she made that stuff look so easy. I think back then I couldn't even like touch my toes. Like I like horribly unflexible and unathletic compared to her.
I noticed quickly that I didn't have to be that tough on her because she was way too tough on herself. Because in high school, it was not okay for her to take second.
In gymnastics, her nickname was Bash, and it was actually because she was bashful. She was like pretty quiet, she was very serious. But then as she like opened up and we got to know her more, it was like this fiercely competitive, passionate athlete, and it was actually like Bash she would bash her face in if she was upset.
Well, she had less control over her emotions, and that might surprise some people.
She took first most of the time. Parents of other children recording her doing her routine so that they could have their children watch it and say this is what it's supposed to look like.
Track and field was in the springtime. You know, they saw I was a good runner. They made me run in a 4x4. I started pole vaulting because they were like, oh, you were a gymnast. I joined the swimming and diving team. I picked it up really fast.
She participated in so many different sports and activities and excelled at all of them that it was almost annoying to be her friend, be like, oh, I play softball. Like
the sports that she did took a lot of concentration, so she didn't have to think of what she had to go home to.
She was so competitive always. Do you guys remember the Capri Sun challenge where it was like you have to drink 15 Capri Suns? So she was like, I'm determined to do it. So she drank 13 Capri Suns and then started, vomiting many times. And then she was like, I still have to finish. So she finished those 2 Capri Suns. Felt awful the rest of the evening, but she did it.
I started doing a health and fitness PE class, and my teacher was also a CrossFit coach.
One of my buddies who's a firefighter introduced me to CrossFit, and I remember watching the games when they were at the ranch. I remember watching Antony, Thor's daughter, and I thought, that is pretty wild. It's one of those difficult things to bring into a school setting because not everybody's willing. It's pretty hard. One of the first workouts I did with kids was the 100 burpees for time. She went hard, fast, and basically smoked all the guys. I had varsity football players and they were floundering around. She was laying there in a pile of sweat. Pretty happy with what she'd done.
We were always squatting and doing Olympic lifts. We would do Murph every year.
Introducing kids to movement fundamentals, getting them to enjoy exercise outside of playing games was gonna help them in life.
To tell you the truth, CrossFit was my nemesis when she was a gymnast.
At that time, I opened an affiliate with a couple other guys. Natural selection CrossFit, I asked her if she wanted to go. But she was one of the few kids I ever asked to do that. And once she started going there, she stuck out pretty quick. Everybody noticed her. My wife and I and other people would drive her to and from the gym before she had a driver's license and a car available to her, and she'd stay there for hours. You could see that competitive fire in her early on. I mean, I could see it in class that she wanted to be better than everybody else, which is a hard sell to a lot of young people. It's okay to be better. It's okay to be the best.
Sophomore year, because I partied so much and freshman 15 was a very real thing, I was like, fuck. Oh no. I need to start working out more. The first gym I went to in Sacramento was CrossFit NV. They were like, oh, we have this kind of like competitors group, you should come hang out with us.
She obviously had her like athletic commitments, her academic commitments, but she like loved CrossFit, so she would still sneak that in like every day.
But I could never tell the coaches anything.
You're getting paid to do track, you're not getting paid to do CrossFit, so like we need you to be peak performance for track.
But as long as I was performing in pole vault and like doing well there, I felt no need to tell anyone.
I remember one of the nurses saying that they had never seen a mom so in love with their baby because I just was obsessed. She was perfect. Danielle was a really physical child. Danielle didn't talk until she was like 18 months old. But at 7 months old, she's walking. By 8 months old, she is climbing up and sitting on my dining room table. Her whole body was focused on these physical achievements. She has no hair. Everyone thinks she's a little boy. It doesn't matter if I put her in pink and little cute hats, which she hates. Lewiston's a pretty small town. They have a paper and wood mill there. That was the big employer. My dad had fallen in love with the outdoors there, and he had always been a fisherman.
My grandpa owned a bait and tackle shop on the Snake River. We lived in like the basement of my grandparents' house. My mom then had my brother.
I'm Danielle's brother, just a little bit younger. I'm 26, so 363 days younger.
Zach always wanted to keep up with his sister. I mean, they were little. He wanted to just be like her, wanted to do the things that she was doing, and she started talking about the same time that Zach did.
I was always very laid back, and unfortunately, I also like to kind of poke at her and antagonize, and I must have realized early on that it was pretty easy to get her riled up because I never stopped. But normal brother and sister stuff.
So it's just the three of us, and Zach comes down those steep stairs, and I'm right down there reading a book, and he goes, "Look, Mommy, I got a haircut." And I'm like, "Oh." And I go, "Well, did you do that?" And he goes, no, Sissy gave me a haircut. You know those scissors you can get, like for kindergartners? They cut hair, let me tell you. They might not be able to cut paper, but they can cut hair. And she had done a number on her hair. Hers was patchy everywhere. There was no saving it. So that was the summer of the little military buzz cuts.
She couldn't just cut her own hair. She had to, give the little brother a haircut too. At least she, made us twin, and we look good in the pictures. We do. It's a look.
They were close, because it was the three of us, although she's so competitive. Like if he had a toy that he really liked, she would take it away and hide it. And he didn't care. he'd just find something else to play with, and I'd be like, "Where's your Game Boy?" "I don't know." And I go look in her closet, and it'd be there. It'd be stashed in her closet. Like, oh. He just loved his sister. Zach's so easygoing. He's just so different than she is. They're just wired different.
He's honestly kind of a stranger to me, which is unfortunate. I think she said like he was just kind of casual, like they were really great friends, kind of got knocked up.
Oh, there's Jack. Hi, Mom. He was tatted up and he had those muscles and he had this big mustache. All the things that I find attractive, he had those things, so.
It's pretty darn sexy.
She got into bodybuilding. She looked unreal.
Yeah, we would go to the gym together. And so we hooked up, and I was 36 years old, and I found out I was pregnant with her. I was so happy to be pregnant because I had tried for years to have a child, and I couldn't. And so I was just ecstatic, just on cloud nine. I don't know. I don't think I was ever in love with them. I think that we tried to make it a relationship because I was pregnant. So we got married. Which was so stupid. Not because we should have, but because I was pregnant. He was just such a great dude when he was sober, but he was in and out of our lives. He'd be sober for a little while, and then he would drink. I see a lot of him and Danielle, the good parts, right? And I'm sure the addiction, the constant drive, in some ways she's taken all of those addictive tendencies and put them into her CrossFit now, but all of the sports that she did all grown up. He was one of those Jekyll and Hydes that when he drank, and he had gone to treatment, he'd come home, we were trying to make it work, and I knew I smelled alcohol on him. And he had used to drink those little airline-sized bottles of vodka, and he'd throw them under this bush. And I saw some of those bottles there, and I went down, and I said, "You gotta go." And he didn't want to go. He's blocking us in, and he starts hitting me, and I'm just covering her with my body. And I've got her covered, and he hits me, and the blow glances off, and he catches her, hits her. And I finally have to leave her to go out to get help because he will not let me leave with the baby. And I just have to trust he loves her. And I go out and I yell for help, and the neighbor calls 911. And then the police came and arrested him. I stayed there a little while longer, but I was scared. I had a restraining order and that, but he was threatening me, and I didn't trust that he would respect the restraining order. And, she's just a baby, and so he was just a really violent man. But I just thought, we gotta go.
You.
In 2019, when Danielle was at the CrossFit Games and won that event, she started to get a little bit of notoriety and a little bit of following. I think post-games, though, she still was only sitting around 7,500 followers, I believe. It probably ticked up to around 13,000 post-Mayhem Classic.
This was a qualifier for the 2020 CrossFit Games. Tia was there and Christy Aramo. They had a workout there that I beat Tia in, and it had handstand walks and dumbbell snatches.
I think Tia said something kind of snide to her afterward, like,
"Is that the only thing you're good at?" Like, and I'm like, oh, did she just say that to me? But I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Tia, right? And I just beat her in an event.
She ended up taking third place, and so she got the qualifying spot to the CrossFit Games.
I'm not really thinking about sponsors or anything at that point because I had no idea how that world worked, what to even do, where to start. Companies they started sending me free stuff. Eventually it led to the question of how can we make basically a partnership out of this? And I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea. Cooper DM'd me and we went back and forth. Eventually got on a phone call.
It just felt like this really easy energy between us.
I just respected him and trusted him immediately. I trusted him so much, and I don't trust people easily at all. And he truly cared to get to know me as a person and saw a lot of the things that I was going through and felt like he could help.
The society tells, women to, not be loud, not be boisterous, not be muscly, not be tattooed, whatever. She doesn't give a shit about any of that, right? She just does what she does.
Cooper does everything. He's gotten me every opportunity that I've ever gotten in CrossFit from a non-logistical standpoint. From there, he literally is the person I talk the most to about everything.
Obviously, I wanted to manage her to the best of my abilities and help grow her brand, but it just grew into more than that. And now, she is family.
The 2020 Games was a lot different from any other year.
Stage 1, it was 20 men and 20 women who competed online.
Where they flew judges out to you and they videoed everything, they live streamed it, they released the events. You had a certain window of time to do the workouts to standard.
And then we whittled it down to bring 5 in person.
To the ranch for an in-person second games.
We went to Sacramento to ASAP Fitness to do the CrossFit Games with Bethany and Carrie and Carrie's coach, Justin Kotler.
Ultimately, it would kind of create this little bit of a competitive environment, even though they couldn't do the workouts at the same time.
Yeah, it was the first time I ever met any of them, which was kind of crazy. And then to have Carrie and Bethany come, it was whoa, these are big time athletes.
Because if you have other athletes, it's just more fun, more motivating.
But the biggest thing from that year would be quickly realizing that Bethany and I had no shot at the top 5 of making it to the ranch.
We huddled up that Saturday night and we said, look guys, Danielle, you might be sitting in 15th place, Bethany, you're in 16th or something, Carrie's in 11th, but if we looked at the numbers, we might be able to make it happen where Carrie can get to 5th and secure that last spot to Aromas.
They would go before Carrie, so Carrie could see what a good time was, and she would have something to beat.
They both did their thing, and then Carrie wrapped it up, and she managed to jump all the way from 11th place to 5th place.
And it's just such a defining moment for me because I was able to go and make the podium that year. I knew it was gonna be my last year. I had planned to retire after that. But then I also thought to myself, this is amazing. I just want to do another year.
It's one of the greatest moments of my career. Carrie and I will always be grateful to Danielle and Bethany for, kind of being there. And I think it did create a fantastic environment.
We left Lewiston, lived in Jersey and Wisconsin. My sister was living here in Tri-Cities in Kennewick and decided to move over here permanently. Found a little place.
This super small house, randomly in some trailer park in the middle of Tri-Cities.
We call it a manufactured home, a little trailer home over on Steptoe.
And there's Julie with her short hair.
When I was little, I had this fear of the water. There was a football player. He had just gotten drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, and my parents were letting him stay with us for the summer before he started the rookie camp. He did the summer league swim coach, and he said that he would teach me how to swim. I really was comfortable in the water once I overcame that fear. Ended up becoming an athlete with AAU swimming. And I had a really successful swimming career, and I went to nationals quite a few times.
Yeah, she was this amazing swimmer who eventually made it to the Olympic trials.
Let's see, there goes Julie out there taking the lead.
I was a finalist. I missed going to the Olympics by 100th of a second, and the 100-meter backstroke.
She was really intense into sports, which is cool to think about, right? Because I'm super into sports, so she gets that, she can relate to that. Because when you think about your parents, you kind of forget they went through things that you went through. They can relate a lot more than oftentimes we even think about.
When I was 5 months pregnant with her, I found out that I had cancer, and I'd had it for years and had no idea.
I just remember her being really sick for a lot of the time and actually kind of just taking care of my mom and my brother at this super young age.
And I went through treatment. So it was a rough couple of years, really challenging because I got babies and I felt really isolated. I wanted to have a social life. Been me and the kids for a long time. I had an opportunity to go to a bar, and I was never an alcoholic, so I can have a couple drinks, and for a while that was how it was, and then it wasn't. I'm in my 40s and I developed a drinking problem. I have a super high wave addiction in my brain. Before I knew it, I was drinking a fifth a day Black Velvet. still trying to parent, but it's getting worse and worse. My addiction, my alcoholism is getting worse. And I start using meth a little bit just to stop drinking. You know, it's just substituting one drug for another.
Living with my mom, you know, my brother and I, like, we're not blind. You're not blind as a kid. You know, I realized my mom was like doing things that were not good.
We would go and knock on my mom's door and try to bug her. And usually she'd probably be busy.
I would shut the door and get loaded, and they'd be on the other side of that door, and I neglected them. And man, it took a long time for me to even admit that to myself. Oh, I was still a good mom. No, I wasn't. I was an addict.
When I try to look back at when I realized, I feel like I knew that it was a thing the whole time. I think I just didn't realize that it wasn't a normal thing. There was always people coming in and out, just like at all times of the day, random people. But then, you know, you'd start to get to know certain people.
You know, she had this boyfriend start to come around.
And this guy was running from the cops. He'd done something, and cops come to my house. So I let them come in to look for this guy. Well, they open up my cabinet, and they see some drugs in there. So I get arrested. I have them call my sister, and she came and got the kids, and I went to jail.
I think we just kind of went with the flow, you know? At that age, like, you're not really, like, taking in what's really happening.
My aunt had 4 other children, I believe, at the time.
We didn't really know them too much. Yeah, you're just kind of like a lost puppy at that point. I think my aunt just didn't know what to do with us. You know, I missed a lot of the 3rd grade. And then that's when the idea that my grandparents said I should start doing gymnastics. I think it was just kind of like throw me in gymnastics and kind of like let me just distract myself with that.
My aunt had blocked the prison numbers so that my mom couldn't call us. She'd say genuinely mean things. So, and then my relationship with my uncle was pretty much non-existent unless he was just yelling at me about something. But the few times I'd bring friends over, it never went well. Either we'd be like playing around in the backyard with imaginary swords, and next thing I know, we'd be getting like made fun of for having fun like kids should. So I stayed away from mostly bringing kids over.
She just couldn't take care of us and, you know, just blamed us for a lot of the things that my mom did, unfortunately, and really just took that out on us. You know, it was none of our fault, so it was really hard to understand how somebody who was family could do that. Cooper brought it to my attention like, hey Dee, like maybe it's time to start looking for a coach.
I thought Collar would be a good fit for Danielle just because I knew how caring he was and she had a good rapport and she liked how Collar had interacted with Carrie.
He's just so passionate, which is the main thing that led me to him. He will put his heart out on the floor for you.
When the pandemic hit, we moved to Las Vegas. And from that time, I was coaching Tola Morquinho, another kid named Matt Lugos. And when that started to happen, I think it became apparent that we were doing some things that obviously were successful, and it started to create some curiosity there.
We're considering it, talking to Justin a little bit, and me and Bethany were like, well, let's go to Vegas to help Carrie prep for the games.
She packed up the car, she drove to Vegas, she set up shop and lived with a friend there that she had just met. She started training there full time and kind of got thrown into the deep end of the pool.
Now I had this opportunity to go train with Carrie Pierce and Bethany Shadburn. Like they were kicking my ass every day.
When she showed up, she didn't know what a clean pull was. She had never used a yoke before.
There was a row workout, and I was talking to Danielle about, you know, what damper setting do you like? And she was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, what drag factor do you row at? She was like, drag what? You know, so just little things, yeah, that she didn't know yet.
Justin, right, like started programming for me, and all right, now we're gonna wear weightlifting straps. I'm like, how do I use these, right? And they're like, are you serious?
Yes, she was raw, but unbelievably talented.
I would have like really bad days. Bethany would be there when I'm like crying and just talk me off a ledge. And Carrie too was just so knowledgeable and like willing to give so much. So it was really cool to be a part of that, especially when I was just like not on the same level as them.
She was able to kind of see what it meant to be a true professional when she was around those women and you know, the other athletes. And long run, I think it really benefited her, but it was also tough because then she would compare herself often, and you know, comparison can be the thief of joy. So it was a double-edged sword for sure.
I don't think there's any question to anyone that Danielle's ability is unmistakable. And I think as a coach, that's very exciting. I think there's very few athletes that you meet that you can say that athlete has the potential to win the CrossFit Games. And Danielle was one of them. There were definitely, I think there were some ups and downs. I don't know that she loved living in Las Vegas, and I think Danielle's complicated as a person, and I recognize she was a little bit volatile, you know, and had a had a bit of a temper.
I think that their relationship grew into something, you know, akin to family. Danielle would go to, you know, his daughter's gymnastics meets and, you know, go over for dinner. And I think she just felt comfort there that she had not gotten, in a stability that she probably hasn't ever really had.
There were things that had happened in her life that I felt like I could be a very positive influence on. And I don't think there was ever a moment where I didn't feel a lot of love towards her.
Seventh or eighth grade, my aunt basically was just like, look, your mom is out, like she's living here.
I had supervised visits with kids. It was really beneficial that I was allowed to do that. It probably kept me alive then because I was so hopeless.
My mom was so nice, so friendly, like the biggest heart. Like she was so loving to us. She just didn't know how to take care of us, right?
The kids are with my sister, so they started coming on the weekend, which gave me a reason to get out of bed, which gave me a reason to fight. And then I started having them more and more, but I still wasn't clean.
My aunt was like, you guys are gonna go live with her. We definitely were not allowed to go live with my mom at that time. You know, we were involved with CPS, and CPS would never allow a woman to get out of prison and then allow her kids to go live with her. But whatever, we obviously broke that rule.
I was always kind of like a mama's boy. There was never a point where I wasn't like wishing to be back with my mom. So, oh yeah, I was ecstatic.
I was a gymnast. I was having to go to practice sometimes 2 times a day.
I made her walk through my house. My trailer is a double wide, you know, on her hands. And she got really good at it. And then I would make her like even open the doors with her feet. We'd go out in the front yard and she'd do her whole gymnastics routine. And I loved it. Loved watching her do her thing. She's just a beautiful athlete.
We would go to like the grocery store, like normally anybody else would.
And I would fill up like things that we needed in the middle. And then I would put like paper towels, paper goods on top, and I'd just walk out with that.
We just like took all this. Like we just stole all this. But my mom's like, yo, like, I gotta feed you guys, right? Like, oh, you guys want cereal? You want this? Like my mom fucking found a way. My mom obviously like didn't have her license. I don't know, it was suspended. And I would get picked up and taken to practice by these random people all the time.
Larry Baker, he had a pickup truck.
I just loved being around him so much was because he was so goofy, so funny. And, you know, he's like, oh, you want to learn how to drive? I'm like, yeah, like none of my other friends are driving, right? Like I'm in 7th grade. You know, I'm driving stick home from practice, or he's taking me around the neighborhood and I'm just getting to drive.
He did? No wonder yeah. No, I had no idea. That's news to me.
Larry would come over. I'm like, oh, he's just coming over to hang out, right? And then eventually I'm like, yeah, Larry's here to give drugs for my mom every day, you know?
I'd have to sell dope to, you know, raise the money to pay to keep the 3 of us alive.
I believe the one she was with the most was Steven. I looked up to him as kind of any kid would, I think. He was cool. He rode a skateboard.
You know, he was the reason my mom did a lot of the things that she did. And you know, there are a lot of people in her life that kind of kept her in trouble. I don't think he was just like a good influence on her. And We kind of lived in this world that felt so normal to us. And I remember like living in it, but kind of going to school, seeing what everybody else had. And I was like, you know, I did feel like embarrassed.
She had told people I was dead, you know, when she was in high school.
Like it was just so much easier, you know, because nobody really asked any more questions. We had all these friends around all the time because they were all of like her homies that were just like there to buy drugs from her. But like we were constantly surrounded by these people.
She ran my house, you know. I had all this trauma I had not processed. I was just numbing it and just hanging out with them. I can't tell you how many times I would have to go find my dope sack because Danielle would throw it away. And she was like my little caretaker, and she was parenting Zach. My daughter's throwing away my dope sack. She's making me dinner. That's not a good mother.
Steven, he was my mom's boyfriend for a really long time. And, you know, he was very like abusive to my mom.
I do remember he broke my mom's arm at one point. She was in a cast, and that just made no sense to me.
He had gotten out of prison. He was just using a lot. I'm like, you can't be here. You know, you gotta go because I want to have a different life. And he hung himself in my bathroom. And
my mom was like absolutely crushed, but I hated this person so much that I was just happy he was gone, which like sounds so fucked up, but like, you know, as a kid in that situation, like I've never been so scared of someone. So it was like this monster that was now gone, you know? It was like I was living like two different worlds, honestly. Like, and I think that's just how I managed it. I truly just had gymnastics and sports as such a distraction. They were vastly different. And like, I really didn't let anybody know ever what was going on. I don't know if it was embarrassment or I just didn't want to talk about it. Like, I just wanted to like live such a normal life with everybody else.
I'm living in all this guilt and shame, so I'm getting high just because I can't handle what I've done. And so I had somebody that had done some controlled buys on me, so the cops raided us.
I'd just broken my foot at gymnastics, so I was in a boot. I'm like sleeping in my room, and
There was knocking, super loud.
I just remember waking up to the cops, like screaming.
All of a sudden they're just barging in. All these policemen are barging in.
I do remember at some point a police officer came in, asked us if we were like on drugs.
You know, I'm like, what, in 8th grade? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, no, I am on Advil. All I see is like, just like my mom, you know, they're like putting her in handcuffs.
I got my son this blanket, you know, one of those cheesy ones that they show on the side of the road, you know, hanging up, and it had a wolf on it. And I had got him that. And he came over and put the blanket on top of me.
I think that's when it really sank in, like, oh, here we go again.
More importantly, like, where the fuck are we going, right? Like, the police officers, somehow they found out, like, my aunt was my legal guardian. If you can't find anybody else, like, we have to call her, like, we have to. And that was when my brother and I just, like, broke down.
I just knew that I was gonna go back into a place where I wasn't happy. It didn't feel like people wanted me there.
And it was, like, that was the worst day of my life. Having to go back there really was. We felt so helpless. Like, we didn't want to go back to this place, and we had to. So. In 2021, we all trained together every day. It was a great little thing we had going on.
We legitimately had 3 top 10 contenders at the games, you know, in the same camp.
We all qualified for semifinals that year.
You got to kind of rank where you wanted to compete for the sanctionals, right? Kotler had Carrie, Bethany, and Danielle all choose Las Vegas because that's where the West Coast Classic was. It was in their backyard. And everybody kind of thought that it was crazy. There's only 5 spots available and you're going to send all 3 of your top women there against some other top women.
I had a lot of confidence. Anyone who would listen, I told them we're going to go 1, 2, 3.
He was just like, I have like 3 of the top 10 girls in the world. Like, they'll make it.
We took 1, 2, 3. Bethany won, Carrie, and then me. We all made the podium, qualified for the 2021 CrossFit Games.
I don't know that there'll ever be another situation where you've got a camp or a coach who was able to go 1, 2, 3 with athletes at the same semifinal. So it was pretty special.
So at the 2021 CrossFit Games, the plan was to have Kotler and the athletes and a few others all staying in this big house.
We were all excited about the prospects of things to come.
It was going to be a fun year. It was going to be a big year.
I don't know, like Saturday or Sunday, Cooper was acting scared and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
You know, Bethany had said, hey, I woke up not feeling well.
We still had a lot of COVID constraints, COVID restrictions, testing protocol.
Carrie, Bethany, and I roll up to this first window. We check in. They're like, all right, we're going to give you a COVID test.
And I remember we were just like sitting in the vans and they're like, okay, like we'll like just pull up, then we'll let you know when you're like cleared.
Mine passed, Carrie's passed, and then Bethany's was like weird.
The writing was on the wall and she had tested positive for COVID.
I really do believe that was the fittest that Bethany had ever been in her life. She was just devastated.
And so then they essentially withdrew her from the competition and she had to go back to the house and quarantine in the, basement.
We're worried about Bethany. We're not worried that like we were around her, but then that starts getting out. You guys have been exposed to her. What are we gonna do with that?
They then had to come up with special procedures.
It was what we had to do because of the medical advice and because of what was going on in society at large at the time and the kind of precautions around all of this stuff.
Tuesday, I don't know, like something was off. Like vibes were off in the house and I'm like, what is going on? Justin was like, Carrie said she doesn't feel good.
It's like, I don't know, I don't feel like normal, but had all of my stuff packed, like ready to compete. I was like, I still felt okay, like a little off, but nothing crazy.
Wednesday morning, we show up to the site to go get tested, to go through the check-in again. Me and Carrie show up in separate cars this time. I'm all good, I pass.
I remember looking in the rear view of the car and seeing a gentleman walking up. And just as I like saw him, I was like, I know what this means. And he like walked up and he's like, you tested positive. You're gonna have to go home, like you're not gonna be able to compete. For me, I knew it was gonna be my last year. I had planned to retire after that. And I feel like that you just like, feel like your world just like came crashing down.
And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm all alone. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is not how it's supposed to be. Like, I'm with these girls every day.
She goes from training full-time with these other women, competing against them, all the media circus around them, into now being a survivor that was going to be able to represent them at the CrossFit Games.
It kind of just threw us all into a whirlwind, worrying that every day you might wake up and you might have it.
I just did not deserve to be there. I have a really bad asthma attack, which was probably mixed with like this panic attack. And then they're like, all right, let's go do the first event at the CrossFit Games. The first event is a mass start. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I'm not quarantined from everybody. I finished the event. I think I get like top 15. I did okay, but I was just freaking out. I probably got tested at least 3 times a day.
We had to apply these restrictions on her where she couldn't compete right next to everyone else.
Anytime we were on site, Danielle had to be masked, and they put us down in North Park, essentially, with the cows.
It was basically like, hey, go do this CrossFit competition alone. The running event. Probably 10 minutes before going on the field, Dave Castro comes up to Justin and I and goes,
next event, you are gonna have to compete separated from everyone else.
Hold up, like why, what's going on? Like I just did a mass start with the swimming event.
I was just pissed off. It was just such a disadvantage to have to do that style of workout by yourself.
I don't want to do this event alone in front of all these people that are watching. I have fucking blue hair. Like, I'm not hard to miss. And they call all the women and they say,
hey, look, here's the deal. Who wants to run with Danielle?
And you feel like you're getting picked like for teams, how it is in like elementary school and middle school. What if nobody wants to like run with me? Felt like a fucking minute before anybody said anything. Laura Horvath was actually the first one to volunteer to run with me. Legend Sam Briggs, as well as Thuri Helgadottir. It was really cool that they even did that, and we're willing to kind of risk that.
I think it ended up being this really cool moment of showing camaraderie and kind of what CrossFit can be about.
The weekend's been up and down a little bit, but they announced this handstand walk event.
We're in the warm-up area in the Coliseum. They're like, all right, like, what are we gonna do about Danielle? All right, Danielle, like, we're gonna have you go in after this person. We're gonna have everybody stop. Like, you're gonna get to touch the ramp alone. Go on the ramp. I do a pass, whatever.
And literally after every time she would do it, they would spray it down with disinfectant before anyone else would go. And then it made the ramp incredibly slippery.
So I go and my hand like slips and I like almost eat it because the mats are fucking wet, and I'm pissed. I'm over it. I'm like, I don't need to do this anymore. Like, I was like, I'm done.
All of that, I think, snowballed into this singular moment.
.07 seconds, that's the time to beat. Oh my goodness! Danielle Brandon is doing this faster than I could run it.
Her two training partners axed from the competition because of COVID protocol. She's been negative the entire time, but they're still secluding her from the group.
She is wasting no time. Already on her return trip, and we haven't even hit the 1 minute mark yet.
It just felt good to finally feel like I was even in control of something. Fuck everything that was like getting in my way up to this point. Screw the warm-up situation. Screw this COVID situation. Screw everything else. Like, look what I can do.
Sub 2 minutes for Danielle Brandon.
I look at Cooper and he like gives me the middle fingers, and I'm like, I just like flip off the crowd. I still won this event, and like I fucking knew it before I even did it.
That was a very unique moment at the games for her. Let me introduce myself to you, the CrossFit community, in only a way that I can.
She flipped the birds, and her following doubled overnight.
The relationship with my aunt and uncle was just, I don't know, things just kind of like took a turn for the worst.
She would make comments, derogatory comments all the time about me and my sister.
I'd be like, hey, do you want me to take you home? She'd be like, no, like maybe I come hang out with you, or maybe I go to the gym. And I think as we got older, I started to hear a little bit more. It started to make more sense why she maybe didn't want to go back home until everyone was asleep or until she could go straight to bed.
There was more than once when she and I sat in the hallway outside of the weight room, and she cried and cried, and I tried to talk her down and get her to realize that it's okay, and the circumstances leading up to that day don't dictate her future.
For some reason, my brother and I weren't allowed to like eat on our own terms. So basically we had food like hidden from us, and we had to like sneak to like get food.
Of course, I was very upset when I learned later that she had hidden a bunch of letters.
I eventually like found this like stack of letters in one of my aunt's cabinets, and I was like, what the fuck? I was like, these are all from my mom.
Even as a kid, I was like, that's not okay.
They were always getting mad at her and like saying that she was kind of like the bad guy, but like she was thriving in school. She was a really good kid, and I think they just like constantly made her feel like she was doing a bad job and like was getting into trouble, which she like was not at all getting into trouble.
She was loved by all of her teachers.
She kept her grades up. She was always a really good student. 4-year letter winner in all 3 sports at school and doing CrossFit.
She focused on what she wanted because the things that she had at home wasn't like what every other high schooler had at home.
I started hearing rumors, basically, that I was gonna get kicked out.
We were like, oh, crazy. That would never happen. Like, you're still in school. It's February. We don't graduate until June.
I was like, fuck that. Like, I'm not gonna let them kick me out. I'm actually gonna move out. And Cameron immediately was like, okay, like, you're gonna live with us.
And my parents were the first to be like, no, she's coming here. Like, tell her to come here, move in here. She can live here, and as long as she needs, like until you guys graduate, until she figures out what she's doing.
So I started packing my things, and my aunt was like, oh, like you're packing your things? And I'm like, yeah, I heard you were kicking me out. And she's like, yeah, we are. And I'm like, well, good thing I'm moving my stuff out then.
She moved in pretty quick after that and stayed in our guest room until she left for her sex date. She lived with us.
I think from literally that point on, had no more contact with my aunt and uncle. My brother did still live there though, so.
High school is where I started breaking the rules a little bit and started actually skipping classes. By junior year, I got like a few hundred absences.
You know, I did leave, and I hate looking back on it thinking that I wasn't as sad as I should have been leaving him, because I was just like, I gotta get out, you know? Like, I gotta get out of this situation.
Yeah, at this point, then I was so checked out of their games and everything, and I just ran away one day basically and didn't come back.
We just had to like protect ourselves, and unfortunately it kind of became this thing where we couldn't do that as a team anymore, and we should have just taken care of each other more.
We have like a special relationship as brother and sister, and it was hard, but we love each other.
You know, I'm still with Underdogs. I really enjoyed having it kind of just be Carrie, Bethany, and I.
Carrie had retired. Bethany went and lived in Los Angeles.
We had to grow Underdogs, had to happen. And that meant bringing in new athletes. And you're trying to develop a culture in the gym, you're trying to create a brand, you're trying to run a business. And I think all of those things necessarily don't always meld the best.
You know, we had this huge camp now, which was great for Underdogs, great for Justin.
So the dynamics most definitely changed, varying degree of athletes. And, you know, Danielle kind of eventually became that top dog.
Being in the gym with Carrie and Bethany, workouts she would win, others she would lose. In 2022, she didn't lose. Danielle was a savage. The new athletes that had come in, they just weren't on her level.
It felt like I was more training alone, so I wasn't super close with anybody else in the camp.
I don't think Danielle was especially happy with a lot of the changes, you know, that were made. And I understand that. I would say 99% of the time, my relationship with her was still very good, you know, but I felt like there were some relationships and there was some of her actions towards some of the other athletes that I think were creating just a lot of tension in the gym.
We get to MAC. I truly felt like I could do anything. Like I was just dominating. Just this confidence that was like unlike anything. But I had the physical capability to back it up, which was so cool.
My intention when I took Danielle on was that we would be together for the rest of her career. I didn't take Danielle on with the intention of we're gonna spend, you know, year and a half, 2 years together. Like my intention was we're going to be together and she's gonna win the games, you know, with me as her coach. But there were coaches and athletes who basically had, you know, who said like, listen, we're gonna leave. And things were starting to fall apart. I just don't know that there was any other way, honestly.
You know, get back home after MAC, like just crushed it. You know, I'm hanging out at the pool and I get this email. I'm basically fired. I'm fired from Underdogs and I get an email about it.
Where we were going as a company and where we were going as a brand, I don't think was necessarily the best fit for her.
You know, we talked about it and I said, look, man, like you guys should really try to talk through this and figure this out. I think you guys owe it to each other to communicate through this and make it work.
I think what ended up happening had to happen. I just felt like things a little bit were falling apart with you know, Underdogs and the relationships. I just think that there were some things that were done on both sides that probably both of us don't feel great about.
I'm just like really sad. You know, I think Underdogs and Justin, Aside from Cooper, it was the first time where I feel like somebody like really cared. And I felt like Justin supported me no matter what. Like, he really had my back, and I feel like I was just part of a family. Like, you know, he was this like father figure kind of.
It's emotional for me, sorry. Fuck. As pissed off as I am and was at her, I only want good things for her.
I don't think Danielle deserved to be let go. You know, people were being emotional and not rational, and they just kind of went over the line and then just couldn't come back from it.
You know, I think there was a lot of miscommunications and a lot of tough conversations that needed to be had on throughout the seasons that just weren't. Not a lot of people enjoy those tough conversations. But I think without having those, it led to a lack of communication and led to me being let go of Underdogs. It was just, yeah, I felt really betrayed. But, you know, I was like, all right, fuck it. Like, we got to figure out what's next, because the games are in, what, a month?
It was clearly going to be a pretty abnormal games again for Danielle. But plan B is get her around somebody who's not her competitor and who I trust a ton, and that was Dallin Pepper.
I was training for the 2022 CrossFit Games in Naples, Florida. Matt was coaching me at Brood HQ.
Now there was all this drama surrounding me, and, you know, kind of people will create stories and, you know, false things about me without even knowing me. But luckily, like, Dallin and Matt and Dom, like, totally welcomed me.
Cooper really did text me. He's like, hey, Danielle's gone. She's booking a flight to Naples tonight. She flew a red-eye. She needs somewhere to train. She needs a good training partner. You down for that? And I was like, let's go.
Yeah, like, got on a flight, brought Cash, my dog.
She was somewhat relaxed, even though she was in this crazy environment of switching complete training camps, coaches, training partners. She was really just like going with the flow, and I think that's a strength of hers. Like, when there are those ups and downs, she'll be able to bounce back and get to where she needs to be.
Trained with Dallin and really had, I think, like, probably 2 solid weeks in Naples. Tried to feel as comfortable as possible going into the biggest competition of my career.
She showed up at the 2022 games, you know, pretty fit, pretty heartbroken, but ready to do what she could do.
Shot out of a cannon, up and over, onto her feet. Danielle Brandon is across.
She was super hungry after the 2021 games and just what had happened, and she definitely was out for revenge.
She had a rough couple weeks leading into the games, some different chaos that you typically don't want.
She's not afraid to fight, man. I mean, she is used to pretty traumatic things and has always battled her way through tough situations. It really kind of showed people what she's capable of.
I think you could tell in the training and leading up to the games and her attitude during the games that, like, she really had nothing to lose. Like, she was there to show her absolute best.
I know how to get here. I know what to do. You know, I can be this fit. 4th, my best games yet, and it felt like my best games. I felt so confident in my fitness and so confident that I could fight through any workout, you know, even mentally.
I think when others might crumble during chaos, Danielle thrives.
Eric Goff pulled me into his office one day during school and is like, we need to have a serious talk.
It was obvious that she was a Division I athlete and a Division I scholar kid if she wanted to be.
He just like put out all these letters of schools offerings and scholarships and like all these schools that wanted me for track and field and swimming and diving.
I mean, I've been teaching for almost 30 years, and she is one that stands out. I didn't want to see her waste the talent she had.
I didn't think about the future like that. That's just not in the cards for me.
Get your college education. It's going to be paid for, kiddo, and just take advantage of it. You're going to be better off for it.
We took her to lunch one day to tell her that she had to go to college. She doesn't get to stay here. You're gonna do something, you have so much potential.
I went to Sacramento State and did college gymnastics. Secretly, I guess selfishly, I really wanted her to go to Sacramento State. And so I had reached out to the track head coach, explained the story and talked a little bit about Danielle, and they were really interested.
They were like, okay, she's a great 400 runner. We have a lot of those right now. She's also a pole vaulter. And I was like, I fucking hated pole vault in high school. Like, I absolutely hated it.
And she holds the school record still for pole vault indoor and outdoor. Even though she didn't love it, she was phenomenal at it.
But it was just something I did because, you know, I was a gymnast, I had all the perfect background for it.
And so then they reached out and offered her a position.
And then was figuring out how to go to college. I had to figure out how to make money, like how to get there.
We put on like a yard sale and just like asked everyone in the community if they had stuff to like donate to the sale. We ended up making $1,000 at the yard sale to kind of just buy the like essentials of like what do you need for the dorms. And I think my parents' gift to her was a computer for college just to kind of like help her get going.
Got me this huge gift and I was like, what the heck, you know, like this is the craziest thing ever. And no matter where you came from, what your situation was before college, like you're finally on your own. It's super fun. I'm living with my best friend and I was just away from everything. Like I was away from home, new people. I wasn't stuck in Tri-Cities, this like super, you know, everybody knows everybody town. I'm in California.
Going to college gave her direction and the ability to expand her horizons and meet different people and see where she could really go and what she could do.
I think it was after my freshman year and I was like, well, I guess I'll go home for the summer. I don't even know how or if I had heard that like my mom was out or anything.
So I get out the end of 2014, kicked everything in jail, had to kick cigarettes and alcohol and heroin and meth and whatever else. You know, all of those things all at once.
I saw her for the first time since like 8th grade. And it was just like seeing a stranger. Like it was so weird because I feel like I experienced so much life like without her. It was a really awkward, like strange encounter, especially with somebody that is your mom. I ended up like staying with her a little bit during that summer because she like had this place and I was like, whatever, like, you know, like free place to stay, right?
And she is so mean to me. You know, she's angry still. And so we have a couple of really uncomfortable months. It was incredibly difficult and I just had to have patience. Here I am bouncing in and out of her life and being a royal, you know, just fuck up.
Yeah, it was awkward. I think she really tried to be a mom. And to me, it was honestly just a little bit too late for that. I had already gotten by through so much of my life without her.
She had every reason not to trust me. I didn't even know if I could stay clean.
I never had somebody in my life try to do the things that she was trying to do. I didn't want it, I didn't need it, and I didn't feel like she deserved to.
And it took us a good 5 years where she will call me like if she's having a hard time. And I'm really grateful. She's just an amazing human. Independent of all of our past. She is an amazing human being. April 19th of 2010. Was the last day I used 13 years, 7 months. I've been clean ever since.
So after the 2022 games and the success there, especially with the 2 weeks leading up to it and how much she enjoyed training with Danielle flew back to Vegas post games, packed her stuff up, and we drove cross country to Naples.
I was stoked to be able to get another year training with her for the CrossFit Games. Training with Danielle can be frustrating. She's so good at everything. Working on a new skill and she immediately has it. And so that really pushes me to get better in those ways. And she's an incredible athlete.
2023, there was a point in the season where I truly was like, I'm on such a good path. I had moments where I truly felt like I could win the games, and I haven't had moments like that. You can have these like really high moments of confidence, but maybe I let them like get to me too much and I let like the pressure of what I did last year get to me. So to not even come close to the goal I had set for myself, that was pretty disappointing. But I will say, like, when I did win the event at the games, it felt like I finally had something under control.
Danielle Brandon, shot out of a cannon, is already on her freestanding handstand push-ups, and she has yet to kick down. Way out in front and still has yet to come off of her hands.
She didn't feel like she was where she needed to be, and she was battling from the back already. And so to go out there and get a home run win, it felt like she was back where she belonged.
She is going to absolutely demolish the top time. Danielle Brandon takes test number 3 in convincing fashion.
It wasn't like, dang, I just won an event. It was just like, thank God I did something for myself that I said I could. Yeah, you know, getting in trouble for swearing on ESPN.
What does it do for the rest of your competition weekend having this win under your belt?
Yeah, ending the day on a win is amazing, but it's a really long weekend, and I'm here to fucking fight, so.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
At least tell a girl that she can't do that.
I stand behind it. We were there to fucking fight.
Felt right that it was me. Fuck it. I think a lot of people in my position and going through what I went through, like, sure, like they easily could have gone down like this really bad rabbit hole, as a lot of kids do, right? Like kids who are raised in a bad household, parents with drug addiction, right? You name it, like it's tough as a kid to come from that. Like that's all you see, that's all you know. So it's very easy to get into trouble and get into those things. But I didn't make that my life, and I didn't make it my identity.
It's one of those things where it's like you find value in the struggle. She just gritted her teeth, and whenever people tried to stop her from doing what she wanted to do, and she just did it.
Sports, I believe, is what saved her. I think she was using that as a way to get her anger out. She is just as wonderful inside as she is beautiful outside.
She's resilient as hell, and I think that her past definitely kind of created that.
I never wanted to talk about it in the beginning because it truly isn't my identity, and I've never wanted it to be my identity. I don't know, I guess now I just wanted to talk about it because there's so many people that can relate.
I think anyone that's in a not ideal situation is gonna look up to her. Be like, oh, she did it, I can do it. I think it's incredible. Like, she was dealt all the wrong cards in life and somehow turned that around to be where she is today.
I'll always have affection for her. I do wish her the best.
And you know, I like to tell kids all the time, kids I teach, it's not where you come from, it's where you're going. It's not about who you were, it's about who you're gonna be. And to see her excel, it's a lesson for everybody. It's a testament to her own will and determination to not let that past define her future.
Going back to when I got fired, she was one of the few athletes who reached out and actually checked in on me and said, hey, are you good? And that meant a lot to me. She is someone who, if you are in her circle, you are in her circle, and that's a special place to be because she is a caring person.
I'm grateful that she has had success. She deserves it. She deserves every good thing that comes her way. She's had to fight so hard.
So it's like at this point in her life, it's like you might as well just have fun with it, man. Like, look at what you've escaped and what you've become. Like, you're winning no matter what the leaderboard says, whatever. Like, Danielle Brandon has won in this lifetime.
You know, I am a really obnoxiously loyal person. I am somebody who's really passionate and in your face. And do I need to tone it down at times? Absolutely. But like, will I always own that part of myself? Yes. That is who I am. And you'll either love me or hate me for it. And that's okay, because I like the people that I have in my life. And if they want to stick around, cool. If they don't, like, there's the door.